Not all those who wander are lost. J.R. Tolkien. Welcome to Aegis Travel Adventures. We are Ken
and Gisele. We have been to over 100 countries and are still looking to see what is around the next corner. We love wine,
travel, and adventure. Listen to our podcast where we share the fun of the magical places, people, and cultures that have touched our lives.
Aegis,
Travel,
adventures.
Podcast number 22. This is Aegis Travel Adventures. This is Ken.
and hi, this is Gisele.
Today we'd like to talk about something we did in the past, and we did it in the winter, and we went to Yellowstone National Park. And it was sort of right at the end of COVID, so there was a few things we couldn't do, but generally speaking, most of it was open for a small group like we did.
It was called, and we book it through the Yellowstone website, just to let you know, and I'll put all the links at the bottom of the podcast. It was called Couples Winter Package or Adventure, and we did it over New Year's. Our anniversary is January 1st, so we wanted to do something fun for our anniversary. So we went there, and it was very nice. What did you think, Ken? Did you enjoy it?
It was extremely exciting and different for us. And just a little backstory on how we got there. We drove out to Salt Lake City for Christmas. And then a few days after Christmas, we flew from Salt Lake City to Bozeman, Montana. Now, our original plan was to drive, and it's mostly interstate to get to Bozeman. But from there, it changes pretty dramatically. And you head south and go towards Gardner, Montana, and then you enter the park and start at Mammoth Hot Springs. It's in the northwest corner, just south of Gardner. It's sort of iffy what the road conditions are, and we had a vehicle with all-wheel drive. We thought it would be fine. And on the way out to Salt Lake City, we had encountered a few problems and hit a snowstorm, and we kind of chickened out, being the Floridians we are. So we took the airplane there, and then from Bozeman, we had a coach.
Want to get to the park? Yeah, we flew into Bozeman and we spent one night in Bozeman. It was nice. I had never been. Had you been to Bozeman?
No.
So it was really nice. Bozeman's really cutesy little town, and we had these great ideas of we were going to go walk around Bozeman, and we were just going to go look at all the wonderful sights, etc. Well, it turned out to be a bar crawl, and the reason it was a bar crawl because it was freezing.
Cold.
It was freezing, so we would literally go from restaurant to bar because I was so cold.
It was like, it wasn't even in the teens. It was below 10 most of the day and night, and there was snow everywhere.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, and there was a microbrewery, and there were plenty of bars, a lot of historical stuff. So yeah, you could go a block or so and duck into another one and have another drink and look at things over, and then and move on. So we sort of did our bar crawl the day before we left, and then the coach picked us up and with several other people, and drove us to Mammoth Hot Springs, and that is a entry point from the north into the park. And in the winter, it's your only entry point you can drive to. Now you can get to other places in the park. In fact, from the west entrance, they allow snowmobiles in, but they have to be out of the park by a certain time during the day. And they're pretty restricted because the snowmobilers in the past have not followed the rules. So anyway, from Cody, Wyoming, on the east side, you can get into the park depending on whether you have to stop sort of at the entrance.
And the roads are open because not all the roads are open during the winter season.
So to give you some more background, most people think to go to Yellowstone during the summer. And we've done that, and it's very crowded, and there's lines. Every time that some animal pops out, everybody stops in the middle of the road and gawks and takes pictures, and you kind of go really slow. And so we thought a few years ago we'd go in September, the off season. So we arrived, I believe it was the 12th of September. Pretty hot in Florida, still summer. We're going to camp. We had equipment. And the first night it was 37 degrees. And this is not even the middle of September. And the second night it was 34 degrees. And we're getting pretty wimpy. And the third night our tent leaked. It was raining, and we ducked into the truck, put the seats down, put the heater on, and stayed in the truck for the night. And the fourth night it was 16 degrees, and a big snowstorm happened. So, this little shoulder season is not very reliable. So, but going into winter is a whole different story. It will be cold. The most of the park, I think, is interesting, is above 9,000 feet in elevation. So it gets cold quick, as we said in September. It stays cold, and even in June, it can be iffy whether you have snow, particularly in the early part.
Yeah.
Okay, so we arrived at Mammoth Hot Springs in the coach, and we walked around. We looked at stuff. There's some beautiful terraces that are caused by the water running out of thermal features, and it trickles down the hill, and it causes these calcite terraces, which are kind of whitish in color, but they're more like a stone, and lots of colors in them. It's very pretty. And so we did that. Got dark pretty quick, and so we had dinner. And
Now the restaurant, this is in case anybody wants to go do this, the restaurant is not in the building that your hotel is in. So again, as we've said this a bazillion times, we're from Florida, and I'm pretty darn wimpy. So I'm like, I want to just go grab. There's a bar over there. I want to go get something to drink. Or I'm like, you have to put every piece of clothing you brought because it's so cold. So we went to dinner. You have to, put all your stuff on. Immediately when you get there, you got to take it all off. But they have a cafeteria. I don't want to really call it. It's a restaurant, and they have really good food. I was surprised. They have a lot of local, a lot of game meat, which if the animals that they use for it are not the ones that you see on the road. These are ones that specifically that they buy to be consumed. So it was nice, and there was about 15 people in our group, maybe not even that many.
no, it was
10?
10.
So, and it was nice.
Five
people
couples.
From all over, and we met some. It was fun, and so we had dinner, and then we got up early the next morning. Oh, we have a guide. Which one thing we should have said. Part of this package, if you will, you have a guide who's going to with you the whole time. So you're not just wandering around Yellowstone going, "What am I doing?" So he has agendas, and every day you have a plan to go. So that morning when we got up after having spent the night there, we got in a coach again.
Snow coach.
A snow coach, a serious snow coach.
Which had tires that came up to about the middle of my chest, and
they're
was
big.
was made for
This.
particularly for traversing Yellowstone in the winter when roads aren't open, they're not plowed, and this type of vehicle is made to stay on the road and go through that type of environment. So the 10 of us fit in there. The driver, he was the guide.
Yeah.
And we took off, and we, first thing in the morning, because it was early, we wanted to go out to the east. Wolves had been sighted. So I think we got out there about 6:30 in the morning, and it was just freezing cold. And so people set up their little telescope devices, and they honed in on the wolves that were little bitty dots in it.
I think they were animatronics myself. But.
And we did see some wolves running on some ridges way off in the distance, but we honestly didn't see a whole lot. And like I said, we were really cold, so we got back in the snow coach pretty quick. And they hung around for a couple hours. On the way out and the way back, however, along the road there was lots of bison, and they're very interesting. They're herd animals. They have the right of way. And they were all around the snow coach at times, and running and snorting, and The big hump on their neck is actually a muscle, and it allows them to use their snout to push the snow aside to get down to what's left of the summer grasses and not starve. Elk, on the other hand, they paw the ground to get through the snow, and when it's deep, they can't get low enough, and so they tend to go to the valleys in the winter to find food. So, the bison are mostly what's there, and there's wolves that hunt them, and the bears hibernate. So,
Yeah, and there was some elk. We saw elk.
but lower levels primarily,
Yeah, right, yeah.
some elk around the Mammoth Hot Springs lodge, which was lower. But yeah, once you're out and about and you're up at some elevation, it's mostly just bison.
Yeah. Well, what Ken said about them having a right of way is sort of kind of is what happens. But when they have a right of way, it means our truck stopped. Our vehicle stops, and the guy's like, I can't do anything until they decide to move. I can't honk the horn. I can't scooch around them. They're supreme. So we had many times we had to stop and just wait for them to go by.
And there could be hundreds of them, and they're all around, and they're not in a rush at all. But they're fun to look at, and they come, right by the windows and look at you. And we didn't have any ram us or do anything like that, but there was lots of bison, and particularly the Mammoth Hot Springs area. There's an area near there called the Serengeti of the North. There's so many animals in the summer there. And a lot of the bison hang out there just south of Montana. So just a couple facts about Yellowstone. It was established in 1872, and it was the first national park in the U.S. Yellowstone Lake is in the park. It's the largest freshwater lake at elevation above 7,000 feet. It also has the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, upper and lower falls, and the lower falls are twice the height of Niagara Falls. So, it's 2.2 million acres. It's a big park, and it's geothermal. None of it's being tapped for its energy because it's a national park. But probably the most famous feature there is the geysers, and on this trip, we were able to take the snow coach down to the Old Faithful Lodge and spend a couple nights there. And that was pretty spectacular because getting there was interesting. I mean, the roads really were not plowed at all. And the snow was deep, and we did see lots of bison. But when you get down towards Old Faithful, then the geothermal features come into view, including Old Faithful, which erupts roughly every hour. And so we stayed at the Old Faithful
Winter
Lodge.
Big difference?
Big difference, because the other one's closed.
And the other one's bigger, and it's got more features. It's a nicer lodge. I wouldn't say nicer. It's just bigger, a little newer. So this is their winter lodge, and it was fine. I mean, we had no issues. And what's nice, obviously, they're set up for this. So you walk in, they have grates, so you're not trapping snow in, all the way through in. And immediately when you get in, there's fireplaces galore, and they have hot cider for you. It's very nice. It's run by I guess seemingly, the staff there works there year round, or some of these people specifically work in the winter. We talked to several people that just say that I love being here in the winter. And so when you work, especially at the Old Faithful, you're in housing. You don't commute, because there's really no place to commute to. So they have
roads open.
Yeah,
so.
They have housing for the staff,
Yeah.
and so we did that. And again, we did different things during the day, and we did two things at night, which were kind of cool. Well, they were very cool actually. We did one just stargazing, and that was a little bit, I have to say, I was a little bit nervous when we were on the road, and by this time, okay, it's snowing. Let's just take that into account.
The park straddles the Continental Divide. So, I mean, that tells you a lot right there. So the majority of it's above 9,000 feet.
Yeah, so it's snowing.
It's snowy.
So, and it's night. It's about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. It's pretty late. And so when you're in this little snowmobile or snowcat, and you're the only ones on the road, and so all you see is the lights of your truck and then the snow coming down. I kept thinking of the Donner Party. I kept thinking, what if we get stuck out here? I kept saying, does your walkie-talkie work? He's like, I'm good. He said, but he goes, we're set up for emergencies. I'm like, that's good to know. So we got out to some middle of someplace in the park, and when we got out there, we stopped, and he took us to this little place, and we looked at the stars, and they were beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous, because obviously out there's no light. Honestly, it was not as cold as I had anticipated that night.
Well, that's partly because there was geothermal features in that area.
Okay.
And so they were putting off some heat, and we walked out on boardwalks and, to the viewing area. And it was interesting. There was a lot of ghost trees.
Yeah.
Or snow trees. They were dead, but they had snow or ice on them. They were all white.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really is, and it was something that Ken and I had both talked about doing forever. And so when we did it, we were really glad we did, because it gave you a completely different perspective of Yellowstone. When we were there during the summer, we did a couple of informational tours, if you will, and they were really. We learned a lot about the park. We learned about the way it runs and stuff. So we didn't just go and just camp and look around. We had a couple tours. We did a chuck wagon dinner, which was really fun. But those are obviously things that you don't do in the winter, because they just don't happen. So, but yeah, Yellowstone. Then what was the other thing we did at night?
Well, one more thing about the stargazing. We went out from the Old Faithful Winter Lodge, and we went quite a ways, because there's no light pollution there.
Yeah.
And so, literally, out came the flashlights, and you couldn't really see to walk without flashlights. It was dark. And so there was a lot of stars. Of course, if it's snowing, you're not going to see much if it's snowing heavy.
It wasn't snowing heavy.
But we, there was a lot of snow around, but when we got out there, it was not snowing. So we had pretty good visibility. And, at night...
It's very magical.
Yeah, it's very magical. And, it's hard to explain, because you've got the sky to look at, but also the geothermal features and the ghost trees or snow trees, and there's just nobody else there.
Except the 10 of us.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think everybody went. Some people like it was too cold. So we were there actually on New Year's Eve. And remember, we had said this is right during COVID, or right, I guess.
Right, just about as it's ending.
Yeah, it was ending. And so they had set up weird things, I guess, so you wouldn't, get too close to your neighbors, if you will. So New Year's Eve was nice, but it wasn't the festive New Year's Eve that we were looking for.
Yeah.
Actually, we had bought a bottle of champagne, or they gave us a bottle of champagne, I forget. So we took it up to the lounge up there, and basically just put some music on our phone and sat there and had our own little private New Year's celebration. It was
the bar
pleasant.
was not open.
Yeah, which I thought was so stupid. Anyway, that's my commentary. But it was nice. We enjoyed it, and so the next day we got up and did a few more tours, and then we
did snowshoeing.
Which, that was so much fun. I'd never done snowshoeing. And I suck at it, by the way.
These weren't very long. They weren't wooden. They were plastic. I'd say they were about 2.5 feet, maybe 3, and you kind of followed the crowd. They made the compress the snow, so you followed the tracks in front of you. And we did see a couple bison on the hike, and it was, the hike was, we were out there a couple hours. It was around the Old Faithful Snow Lodge or Winter Lodge.
We saw also lots of little animal tracks. So we saw, squirrels, or I don't know what they were. But anyway, we saw, I think they even saw, as people said, they saw some fox prints, fox paw print. And it was fun. It's so much harder than you think it is. At least it was for me. Going uphill, when I say hill, they were really just a little steep walkway. That was hard, because you're again, I don't have a whole lot, I'm not very good at it, but I had fun. I only fell once or twice, so that was good.
So we did that, and then you could go hiking. You had some free time in the daytime to go hiking to see the geothermal features. Of course, Old Faithful was right by the lodge, so there's always people there, and you have to go see that at least once. I really like Castle Geyser. It was a 30-40 minute hike, and there was other features I hiked around. Gisele went out and did a little bit, looked at it and said, I'm too cold, and back she
I'm gonna
went.
go take a bath.
So one morning, I'm not sure which one it was, but I went outside and the thermometer said it was 21 degrees below zero. That's really cold. And when you breathe, you got a lot of moisture in your breath. I mean, it literally went out and started to sink. You could see it. In the winter when animals snort and stuff, you see it come out. Well, I mean, it literally went out and started to sink. And it was really funny looking.
It did make you appreciate, if you had watched the series Yellowstone, it makes you appreciate the out there. It's just so beautiful, and it was lovely. I mean, we had a really nice time, and I would strongly suggest, even though you're not be a person who loves the cold weather, to consider doing it, because for somebody who, like me, again, gets cold super easy, we enjoyed it. And we had bought the gear and we were fine. And it was so much fun to be out there in the snow, especially when we live in Florida. We don't get to see that very often, at least most of the time.
So the package is the first night at Mammoth Hot Springs Lodge, then you get in the snow coach and go down to Old Faithful Winter Lodge, 3 nights there, and then you go back. It takes a while to travel between the two, and then you go back and you stay your last night at Mammoth Hot Springs again. So it's 5 nights, and you get your meals, snow coach, your rentals, and all that. We thought it was worth the money. It's not the cheapest thing we've ever done, but it's certainly something we'll remember forever.
And we went during the New Year's Eve and Christmas. There's a premium. We paid about $2,946 actually to do it, but we paid a premium for going on New Year's Eve, which I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
So we enjoyed it. It's something to consider to put on your bucket list if you've not ever thought about it. Hopefully I'll put some photos and we'll put some links. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. And my tip of the day regarding the Yellowstone adventure was, be prepared. I think I enjoyed the adventure because I had brought the proper gear. I think there's some people, one guy with us who kept wearing blue jeans, and he kept saying how cold he was. And I'm like, well, you brought blue jeans. You've got to dress accordingly. And I know it's sometimes to spend money when you do these things, but if you're going to go and want to enjoy your adventure, you don't need to spend a fortune, but you do need to make sure you have waterproof gloves, a good hat. And how cold do you get? How many layers do you want to wear underneath? So that's my tip, is when you do something like this, plan and get the gear so you'll be comfortable and enjoy it and not miserable.
And believe it or not, you still need to stay hydrated, because a lot of times you're in a heated area and you're losing hydration. So you need to drink a lot of water, and that becomes problematic if you're all bundled up outside and you have to go to the bathroom, but you work through it. So make sure you have water bottles. And
they give you water bottles.
Yeah.
They make, Yellowstone is big about zero waste, so they give you water bottles, and they literally fill it up every time you turn around. So, but anyway, we enjoyed it, and again, hopefully you guys will think about it. And if you have any questions, give us a call or email.
Thanks for listening.
Travel.
Bye.
Adventures.